Life is a roller coaster of unexpected twists that can challenge us to our core. Yet, with God's guidance, we discover the courage to forge ahead, embrace the adventure, and navigate life's reroutes with unwavering confidence.
I had this girlfriend in high school named Amanda, right? Yeah. Better than that, she was a senior, I was a freshman. Buddy pulled back in the day. Now, some people are applauding. No, hold on. Here's the thing. Like, one of the best parts about that was that she could drive. Like, I was 14, she was like 18, and she could drive. I know, I don't know. We met at church. She was on the worship team. Hey. So anyway, she could drive, and we would go on dates at this place. And I remember that one memory that I remember still to this day was that we would go on this date, and then to get to the restaurant, there was a roundabout. Y'all know what that is? Like whenever you're driving and there's a roundabout. And what we like to do was, like, on the way to the restaurant, we would just go around in the circle because everyone pulling onto the roundabout has to yield to the person in the roundabout, right? So you could just go indefinitely for circles and circles, and like no one could pull out in front of you. They just all had to wait. And we thought that was so funny. And I just remember laughing at the top of my lungs as like I'm glued to the passenger side door, and we're just going like as fast as her little blue car would go around and around this roundabout. Now, no, but shelf that story for now, put it on a shelf, and remember it for later because we're going to revisit it. Like I said earlier, this is a new school year. How many of you guys would say that this year is different than last year? Is there anybody that would say that this year is exactly the same as it was last year? Pretty much, but there are probably some subtle differences, right? So, like, sometimes the changes are subtle. Like, we're in this series, it's called Roundabout, it's about change. But sometimes the changes in our lives are a little bit more noticeable. Like, for example, I'm just gonna get real deep real quick. Like, a change happened, and now you're spending the weekends at your dad's house. A change happened, and now you're here, and you're from out of state. You're in a whole different state, or you're in a different community, or maybe you're going to a different school. Or maybe the change is that you lost a pet, or a family member, or a friend. Maybe, like for me, my high school girlfriend, Amanda, she went to college, and she broke up with me because she met college guys. She was like, why am I dating a sophomore in high school? Like, that's so dumb, right? And so she broke up with me, and that was a big change. But not all change is bad, right? Like, have you ever experienced change and you're like, this is better. This is a good thing. I just got an upgrade. Like, maybe you finally got a phone and you're like, finally. Like, why did my parents make me wait till I'm 14 to get a phone? Maybe you got a job this year and now you got a little bit of that lechuga in your pocket. You know what I'm saying? That's a little Espanol for you guys. Y'all know. You're in that class. Except for the few in here who took, like, French. You're never going to use that. Like, drop out. Maybe your change is that you got a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend and y'all looking cute on your little Instagram. I got a new girlfriend my sophomore year of high school. Ask it. Go ahead. Ask it. Yes. This is what I'm talking about. This was my senior year of high school, after we had been going semi-steady in high school, other story for a different day. And then after we graduated in 2009, 4 years later after college, this was our wedding day. And then now 2024, 11 years after that, this is the current day. So yeah, change can be good. Like, God can take something negative and turn it into something positive. And we experience these things all the time because we all experience change. Like, this is the one thing that we all have in common, no matter what, no matter who we are, what our experiences is. Yes, we all have different changes in life, like I listed. Some of those hit us, some of us, they didn't hit it all. But, like, what are the changes you're experiencing this year? Because whenever I ask, is this year different than last year, basically everybody raised their hand. So therefore, you're going through changes. Right, changes are all around us, and life itself sort of feels like this roundabout. There's different things coming on at different places. Some of them are out of your control. Some of them are coming in from a blind spot. Some of them are coming in super slow. Some of them are coming in super hot. You're just trying to survive and exist in this chaos sometimes, and it's just wild. If you're learning how to drive, like, you know what I'm talking about, if you've ever had to be on a roundabout. But the question is not, how do I avoid change? Because you're like, all right, you're going to tell me, how can I avoid change, right? But that's not really that's the wrong question. The real question is, how can I navigate change when it happens? Because if you're just trying to say safe and like nothing will ever change, like I'm never going to go anywhere or do anything, that way I can never get hurt, which is a very real response. Like if you've been through something hard, a response is, I'm never going to try that again. I'm never going to put myself out there again, because that's one way to ensure I'll never get hurt again. So I just want to avoid change as much as possible. It's intimidating. It's uncomfortable. It's new. I don't like new. I don't like uncomfortable. I like safe, comfortable, familiar, very demure, very cutesy, very mindful. We love that. But that's not, Unk is on TikTok. That's not the point. The real question is, how can I navigate change and be better on the other side? So with this series, what I want to do is sort of put some tools in our pocket to help us get through the changes when they happen, no matter if they're coming at you fast or slow or out of nowhere, or if you saw it coming from a mile away. How can we walk through these changes with grace? So we're going to be in the Bible, every week, but today in the book of Ecclesiastes. So if you have a Bible or the Bible app, go ahead and get it open and turn to the book of Ecclesiastes. And while you're getting there, I'm going to set it up for us. Okay, so Ecclesiastes is in the Old Testament, and it was written by this guy named Solomon, who some people say was the wisest person to ever live. Also, one of the wealthiest people to ever live. And he had a lot to say on the topic of change. And this book, Ecclesiastes, is like a weird word, right? And we talk about the word that it comes from in the Greek in here sometimes. That word is ecclesia, which really means the gathering or the assembly of people who are trying to learn more about God. So it's been sort of translated into English as the church. The ecclesia or the Ecclesiastes is like the church. So that's us. Like this book was written to us, and that Greek word ecclesia comes from a Hebrew word, kehalit, which means teacher or preacher or someone who communicates. So it's like the book Ecclesiastes is basically a sermon given to a church or people who are trying to learn more about God. So really, that's us, that's here, that's now, and that's why this book, even though it was written thousands of years ago, still pertains to us today. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, starting in verse 1, Solomon says this: for everything, there's a season. There's a time for every activity under the sun. Now, I want you to focus in on a word in there called season. Look at it. Think about the seasons and how they change. I know we're in Texas and like seasons are sort of ridiculous, but they still change, right? Like every single year is going to get hot, it's going to get cold, it's going to get windy, it's going to rain. There are seasons, and life is like that. He's drawing a comparison here from the weather to life. I'm just using a roundabout, but you know what I'm saying? The point is that it's always changing, and it's inevitable. Like you can't stop the seasons from changing. You can't stop change from happening in your life. So then Solomon goes on like this poetic run, and I'm going to read the whole thing for us, but just follow along in verses 2 through 8. He says, there's a season, there's a time for everything under heaven, right? He says, there's a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to harvest. There's a time to kill, oh snap, and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up. There's a time to cry. And there's a time to laugh. There's a time to grieve and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to turn away. A time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend. There's a time to be quiet, and there's a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate. There's a time for war and a time for peace. I don't know about you, but as I read that, there are some of them that like hit me. Like there's a time to cry. Some of y'all are in that time right now. And that's okay. Because there's a time for everything under heaven. There's a season. And that's the one you're in right now. And that's valid. But notice the next season. After cry, there's a time to laugh too. There's a season for that too. And that's just as valid. And it's coming. Just like the seasons are changing. I think this whole paragraph that I just read can be summarized in 3 words. And the 3 words are just change is life. Change is, it's like Thanos. It's inevitable. And you think, well, that sucks. Because if I want to be safe and consistent and comfortable, and I don't want change, and you're saying change is just a reality of life and it's inevitable, I just have to embrace it. You're saying things aren't just going to be good and peaches and cream and rainbows and unicorns and sprinkles and sunshine all the time? No, they're not. There will come a season in which you cry. There will come a season in which there's pain. I don't know what season you're in right now, but you do. And just be reminded that there's another season coming, for better and for worse. But there's hope in the changing of the seasons. And here's what I mean. I got this thing right here. Y'all ever seen one of these? Does anybody know what it's called? Newton's Cradle. Newton's Cradle. So good. Buddies in AP classes, I see. Okay, everybody knows that. I didn't know that. I didn't know what it was called. I Googled, hey, give me one of those silver sphere thingies on the strings. Okay. It's moving around a lot. This is Newton's Cradle. I'll try to make it as still as possible. Okay. So imagine this is your life, and maybe you're this one in the middle. And everything's chill right now, and that's fine. But then you obviously know what's going to happen whenever I take one and I let it go. And now everything around you is just going crazy. And you're kind of staying in the same place, but you're being rocked and you're being shaken by it a little bit. Now, if I take 2 and I move it around, same sort of deal. But check this out, bro. What if I take 3? I mean, that's just a hot mess. And now you're going around with the mess. But if you let it sit long enough, you'll notice it'll settle back down and it'll stop again until somebody, some outward force from the roundabout, comes in and ruins everything and just does it again. And that's life sometimes, right? And now look at it. It's a disaster. But one thing you never think about with Newton's Cradle, it'll never be the same again. No, I like this. I like it for the illustration, which is short for illustration. One thing about this is there's going to come a season, I'm going to untangle it, and that'll be the season, right? But right now it's in a big mess. No. One thing you never think about with Newton's Cradle is these bars up top. And for me, it hit me. I'm like, when this is the mess of life and everything around me is going crazy and I'm tangled up in it and stuff's coming in at me from every direction, the one thing I can count on that will always be consistent are these bars, these 2 bars. Bar number 1, imagine it's God will always love me. When you're feeling unloved, whenever you can't even love yourself, this bar will hold you and support you and be there for you, and it is unwavering. It does not move. It stays still when everything else is moving and changing. This never will. God's love for you. This second bar, God will always be with me. Whenever people leave you, and whether it was their choice or not, they moved away, or like I mentioned earlier, a pet or a relative passes away or something like that, God will always be with you even when people are not. He will never leave you or forsake you. That's in his word, and his word is true. It doesn't matter what happens down here. We must stay anchored to God up here, because when everything around us is changing, he never will. And he's got you, and he's holding you, and he's supporting you through the change like no one else can. I've experienced it so many times in my life, and the people I know and love who've gone through it, if they have stayed anchored in God and his word, they make it through to the next season, and it looks good. It can be good. The plans he has for you are to prosper you, not to harm you. He works all things together for the good of those who love him. He takes what the enemy meant for evil and he turns it for good. These promises are true, man, and they're all throughout his word. But you can't live it if you don't know it. You got to be in it, which is why we're doing the Bible plan together. I super encourage you to get into that thing and just try it. Try to spend 60 seconds a day just getting into his word. If you're experiencing change and you don't know how to navigate it or how to handle it, even if you're not, there's a day that you will. Like, it's a guarantee. In this world, you will have trouble, God's word says, but take heart, I have overcome the world. If you need someone who's an overcomer in your life, God is the one who will never fail and never let you down. For those of y'all who don't know, my wife, her name is Amber. And early on in our relationship, do you remember the girl that I dated before when I was a freshman and she was a senior? Remember her name? Amanda. Early on in our relationship, do you know how many times I called Amber Amanda on accident, like on mistake? Dude, let me tell you what you do not want to be referred to as, is like your boyfriend's ex. Not cool, man. Not cool. It was not good. But it's because I was in the middle of change. Change was happening, and change takes time. It's not going to be instantaneous sometimes. It took me a long time to get over that girl. It's crazy. And when you're in the thick of it, you might not be able to see God. You're broken. You're confused. You're lost. You're like, where is God in this? How could this possibly be good? And it's probably not. It might not be. That's just straight up. But it can be turned into good if you stay in there long enough. This is why the writer of the book of Hebrews, he reminds us of this in chapter 11, verse 1. He says, faith is the confidence in what we hope for and the assurance of things we do not see. We have to have faith that God is working. Even we sing this worship song, right? Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. That's this verse. You don't see it, but you have faith that God's doing a thing over the long haul. Just like these little lines right here, they don't even know. I'm going to come in there and untangle you, I promise. So keep your eyes on him, and your faith will grow in the process. I promise you. Where there is chaos, God brings order. Where there is confusion, God brings clarity. Where there is hurt, God brings healing. Where there is change, God is consistent. Because change is life. But God has your life in his very capable hands. Just trust him. What's holding you back? What's stopping you?